All right, with us now, attorneys Misty Marris and Robert Bianchi. Misty, first to you here. What will the judge take into consideration when determining the sentence?
Yeah, John, so it's going to be aggravating factors and mitigating factors. So prosecution, they're going to present the aggravating factors, and a lot of that is going to be what we just heard Gene speaking about, those horrible victim impact statements from those that were impacted by the deaths of those 4 kids. Then we're going to hear mitigating factors. That's where the defense is going to talk about all of the things that should lower the sentence. That's going to be focused on their own witnesses who are going to be able to come up. There's family members for James and Jennifer Crumbley. In addition to that, they're going to say that they're remorseful, and they're also going to focus on the facts here. They're not the one with the gun. And there's 3 pillars in criminal justice system: a rehabilitation, deterrence, and punishment. That's why we incarcerate people. So the judge is going to be thinking about those 3 buckets when ultimately determining a sentence.
Bob, we talked about the unprecedented nature of this. You do have some concerns about that.
Yeah, I really do. As a prosecutor, we typically don't criminalize civil actions, and usually we criminalize the actions that a person themselves actually performs or doesn't perform. This one is more attenuated, or it's brought out a little bit more, where we're saying we're going to hold the parents responsible for the actions that they did not contemplate, that they did not envision, that there wasn't a conscious disregard, that they did not know was going to happen for what it was that their son did. And what concerns me as a former prosecutor and a homicide prosecutor is I have seen situations where it may make sense in one case, but then starts getting used in all sorts of other areas, and parents have to be now aware that they may be held responsible for all sorts of conduct of their children.
Okay, be that as it may, they've been convicted already. So this issue, already asked and answered to an extent, but how will that impact the sentencing, do you think? Do you think the judge will have that going on during considerations?
Well, having been around a long time, I have to tell you that there are a number of people who are dead here. So that's going to weigh very, very heavily as an aggravating factor, as Misty had indicated. Now, the sentencing guidelines are between 3.5 years to 7 years. Prosecutors are looking for 10 and 15. So the judge is going to have to balance these aggravating and mitigating factors. But the fact that there are 4 deaths here is going to weigh very, very heavily on the judge. And because of the publicity of this case, my experience has been the more publicity, the more harsh the sentence is going to be.
They were tried separately, yet being sentenced together. What's the likelihood that their sentences will be the same or different? How will that be determined?
So the judge could make a determination that the sentences are different. Now, my gut is telling me that they are likely to be the same. However, in the pre-sentencing memos, both sides submit these memorandums. The prosecution was very focused on a jailhouse phone call that James Crumbley made, which, remember, when we were covering the trial, John, we didn't know what the content of that call was. So the prosecutors are saying that that was actually a threat to prosecutors. Now, of course, defense, they're countering that, saying this is just him with a grievance and he's allowed to not like what the prosecutors are doing. That's his right. But that's certainly something that we're going to see prosecutors focus on with respect to James Crumbley. Could that enhance a sentence? I don't think that's going to move the needle for the judge. I anticipate they will be the same. But that's something certainly that could be taken into consideration.
I saw you shaking your head.
I mean, this is just ridiculous what's going on in this case in terms of the character assassination and evidence that's been allowed in, which I think is going to be subject to a potential reversal down the road because you're not allowed to introduce that evidence. And now prosecutors, of which I was one, are going to be so genteel and upset that they believe that it's an appropriate factor, that because he's angry with prosecutors, that should be a reason why his sentence is increased. That's not in the sentencing code. And again, once again, I think prosecutors are overstepping their bounds. As a prosecutor myself, I never would be saying I'm personally offended, therefore the sentence should be higher because they attacked me. Ridiculous.
The victim impact statements, they will be wrenching. What actual effect do they have? To what extent has the judge already got the sentence ready? Yeah,
so you make a great point, because there is so much work that goes into this and determining the sentence before we even step into the sentencing hearing. The memos that we were just speaking about, which lay out the arguments of both sides. So certainly the judge has an idea of where they're going to land. We know there's state sentencing guidelines. As Bob said, 3.5 to 7 years. Prosecutors are asking for an enhancement. However, those victim impact statements, they could move the needle. And the judge can take all of what happens today into consideration. So to the extent he has something in his mind, which he likely does, it could be enhanced. It could be more towards those sentencing guidelines. The defense could move the needle. It just depends on what happens in the courtroom.
All right, Misty Marris, Bob Bianchi, thank you both so much for being with us. Appreciate it.